Well, hello everybody. I wanted to cover a topic here about TFRs. And basically, what is a TFR? Well, a TFR is a temporary flight restriction. And I wanted to cover a little bit about how that applies to drones and drone operators. And this applies whether you're a commercial drone operator like I am with a Part 107 or whether you're a recreational flyer. TFR is it's a regulatory action that's issued by the FAA, and it temporarily restricts flight operations in a specific area for safety, security, or other reasons. Common reasons might be natural disasters, VIP movement, say like a presidential candidate in an election, or the president or vice president, high level government officials, public events, like football games, NFL games, college games, big outdoor events, or even military activities. All right, so that kind of covers that part of it. There's a legal framework behind all of this, and basically these TFRs, they're administered under the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. And really all drone operators, whether you're commercial or recreational, all must comply with those regulations. There are penalties for that, and I'm going to get into that a little bit further on. There's quite a few things to consider, but I first wanted to kind of talk a little bit about how these TFRs are established, how they're established, and how they're issued and communicated. And that's very important because if you don't know about them, it's very difficult to understand what to do. A lot of people end up getting a drone for Christmas. They get it for, and they take it out and they start flying it around. They really have no idea, what necessarily that they're doing, and what kind of issues they might have to face depending on where you're located. But there's something called a NOTAM, NOTAM. Basically, it's a notice to air missions, and it serves as an official notice of a TFR or temporary flight restriction. And these are often tied to real-time events and emergencies. There could be a natural disaster, fire, flood, whatever, or even a game. It could be a VIP movement. It could be an NFL game. You might be flying near a stadium. You can stay updated on these things, and I'm gonna show you some links a little bit later on. There's the FAA website. There's some apps that you can have on your phone before you fly, and aloft, and so on. And I will show those links here a little bit further on. Now, there are some differences that we want to talk about. First of all, differences between commercial and recreational flyers. What do I mean by that? So a commercial drone flyer is an FAA certified operator. What they call it a Part 107 would be and you have to take testing for that. There's some training that you can take. You have to go to a testing facility. And this is if you want to get paid commercially. Say you want to take real estate photos, you want to do thermal imaging, just about anything really that involves money. And this even includes YouTube. Like if you're using a drone and you're making content, you're getting AdSense revenue through YouTube, you really need to have a Part 107. Anything that is commercial, you would actually need to have that. And there's some higher responsibility to comply with airspace restrictions when you do have that Part 107. And then there's some pretty im impact. There's some impact violations on the Part 107. Now, recreational flyers, they also need to follow FAA rules. There are recreational rules. You need to stay clear of TFRs, even if you're a recreational flyer. And, ignoring a TFR is not a defense. If you think a legal defense is, well, I didn't know, that's not going to fly. And again, want to talk a little more about some of the scenarios again where they apply. I think I mentioned these already. You got VIP movement, that's presidential, government-related flights, Air Force One, disaster zones, that can include wildfires, hurricanes, search and rescue operations, any large public events, stadiums, major sporting events or concerts. There's also security concerns. Hopefully, we don't have anything like that, but there's national defense operations, but there's also sensitive installations. There's sensitive military installations that will have TFRs around them, and some of them have some that are not so temporary. There's legal penalties, there's fines, ranging from hundreds to thousands of dollars, criminal charges for severe violations, especially if in restricted or sensitive airspace. You've got, civil liabilities possible, lawsuits if a drone disrupts an emergency operation or causes harm. And these can come not just from the FAA. There are some ways to check for TFRs before you actually go fly. Um, One of these is a really good one would be the FAA's TFR map, which you've got the link. I've got the link here shown for that. There's also some apps that you can have on your phone before you fly aloft, which is I think formerly Kitty Hawk, and then the local air traffic control if you're uncertain. But one of the important things to do is to check this before every flight. All right, so here it's right now it's January 17th, 2025, a little after 6 p.m. Eastern time, and this is a list. I actually went to the website, the tfr.faa.gov website, and here's a list of some of the TFRs that we've got in place here. They are just kind of listed in order. You got the NOTAM, I mentioned that, Notice to Air Missions. It used to be Notice to Airmen, but I guess that kind of came across as sexist, so we wanted to make that was actually modified. Notice to air missions. Um, and so these are the actual numbers that they assign for these. You got, oh, wow, Florida, we got space operations going on, Cape Canaveral. I can actually click on that particular one if I want to. You can get more information about it. Cape Canaveral, Florida. The beginning date and times, January 23rd. You've got a little bit of a map going on here showing the area that's affected. Pilots may contact Miami Center. Here would be the phone number, so if you need to call the air traffic control. Um, but it actually gives you the region here. It gives you the coordinates, the latitude, longitude, and so on, the effective dates. No pilots may operate an aircraft in the areas covered by the NOTAM, the Notice to Air Mission, except as described, Space Ops Area. So that includes drones as well. So I did want to cover some of this here. You've got VIP movement. As a matter of fact, I will mention, I think the presidential inauguration is Monday the 20th, and I did receive an email already. I'm actually on an email list with the FAA, and they notified me, that there's going to be a TFR associated with the inauguration. So this is a good listing that you can look at. Let's see, let's talk about some of the exemptions or special authorizations. There are some agencies and even operators, with a Part 107, you can actually apply for waivers. I don't know what the odds are, it depends on the situation, but you can have waivers or permissions to operate in a TFR area. Commercial operators may petition for authorization. So in my case, being a Part 107 operator, I could petition for authorization under some specific circumstances. I can't really think of what those are. It would be very rare for that to occur, but it is possible. Say some best practices, really plan flights with airspace awareness. Be aware of the airspace that you're operating in. Always be aware if you're going to be operating in an area where there could be a TFR. You saw from that website example that they're all over the country and there's different situations. Maintain communication with local authorities, or even the FAA if you're unsure. All right, so let's see here. Penalties. So I did want to cover a little bit about some of that because I know a lot of people are really unaware um, of the penalties that can be involved in flying. Okay, so we have, first of all, we have civil penalties. There's fines. Recreational and commercial drone operators could face fines up to maybe 30,000, for flying within a TFR. You could be more than that even. The exact amount depends on the severity and the nature of the violation. That's just an example, per violation basis. So each unauthorized flight within a TFR could be treated as a separate violation. So if you fly into one, fly back out, fly back into it again, they could try to hit you with multiple violations with that. So definitely something to avoid. You've got criminal penalties involved. You've got federal charges. Flying in a TFR area, could result in criminal charges if the violation endangers any public safety, national security, or even emergency response operations. You could face possible imprisonment. Severe violations, especially any of those involving national defense, law enforcement operations. Violators could have jail time. Um, Flying near a wildfire and interfering with firefighting efforts. We've got the fires out in California going on currently, near Los Angeles. We've had actually an issue where a drone collided with a tanker, a Canadian tanker that was dropping water, damaged the plane. It had to land, taken out of commission. I guarantee they're going to be in big trouble. Violate a TFR during a presidential visit. You're not going to end. It's not going to end well for anybody that does that. For commercial operator, you could lose your Part 107 license. They could easily take your certification away. The loss of equipment is another possibility. They could confiscate equipment. Of course, yeah, obviously the damage to your reputation, or if you're working for a drone company as a commercial operator, yeah, definitely not good. Interfering with emergency operations, there's additional legal action that could occur. You violate a TFR near a disaster zone, a wildfire. You could have lawsuits, other lawsuits involved, additional fines, depending on what other things you might be doing. Endangering lives, if you endanger lives with firefighting, rescue helicopters, in the case of damaging that tanker plane, those guys were put in danger when their plane was damaged. I would suspect there's going to be some, pretty bad consequences there. All right, national security violations. Yeah, I mean, sensitive areas, breaching a TFR near a military installation, could be something like nuclear facilities, during a VIP movement. Whenever you've got Air Force One involved, there's going to be heightened security near airports, takeoff landings, any kind of federal investigation. All those things could really create severe penalties. Any kind of no-fly zone, unauthorized flights near any kind of no-fly zone could be treated as a national security threat. Any kind of liability. I mean, you got liability for damages, civil lawsuits. If a drone causes any damage, I would imagine, the person that damaged the tanker aircraft could be liable for damages. Disrupts operations, any kind of emergencies that are involved. There could be some severe, they could be held financially liable for a lot of these damages. And yeah, aircraft interception or destruction, I think I just mentioned. Um, you could have your own plane, and a law enforcement or military may intercept or disable your drone. That might be the cheapest thing that you'd have to pay for as a new drone. I would say out of all of that. So yeah, in conclusion, basically, I just want to say, the penalties for violating a TFR are pretty severe. They can escalate really quickly, especially when the violation endangers lives or involves any national security. So I'll say it again, drone operators really should always check for TFRs using the FAA resources like the Before You Fly or the FAA's TFR website. And you can also, go to the website and get on a mailing list, which is very helpful too to help remind you. I know during presidential campaigns, if you're near a city, you might not be aware of it. So it's definitely something that you are responsible for. All right, so hopefully that's helped explain a little bit about what a TFR is and some of the penalties. I'm not trying to scare people away, but it's just one of the responsibilities, whether you're commercial or a recreational drone operator. So, hey, if the video's been helpful in any way, please like, share, subscribe, and look forward to seeing you in another video.